This episode of the Cult Pop Show podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch or get 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, then please consider becoming a patron and joining us at www.patreon.com/cultpopshow. Hello, and welcome to a late edition of Film Franchise Fortnights, unless you're listening to this anytime after it would, if you're listening to this in your normal schedule, which is more than, a day after these podcasts normally come out, in which case, welcome to a regular episode.
This is Cult Pop Show Nights, When we're late for an episode, it becomes Cult Pop Show Nights.
Where we
it's a little bit sexier. It's a little bit more erotic. Look, I'm Alexander Jones, and you can call me AJ. And Richard, colloquially known around these parts as the man with the biggest penis. We're here.
Jesus Christ.
Big Dick and little AJ are here to soothe your ear canals with our voices.
So today we're talking about RoboCop. This is a film franchise. This is Film Franchise Fortnights, where we talk about different film franchises. And this day, it's RoboCop, the robot who's also a cop.
What?
So this is a franchise of 4 films consisting of an tridge, as we often encounter on this podcast, of RoboCop 1, 2, and 3, and then there was also a reboot some years later.
A robot.
A robot. So the original came out in 1987, and that was directed by Paul Verhoeven. And Alex, what's that about?
The first Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop is about a cop who gets, he gets killed in the line of duty, and so a bunch of police scientists rebuild him into a cyborg that he barely resembles the man he once was, and now he's more robot than man. And he goes after the people who killed him, among other various things police do. But he's a robot
than cop.
Yeah. So that's what the first one's about, and it's like a ultra violent 80s classic.
Yeah, for sure. So, what do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? The film
61%.
Review aggregate. Oh, way off, mate.
What is it?
Give you another guess.
62%.
89.
Okay.
That's with critics in here. With our audiences, it has 84%. So, regarded as a bit of a classic. And what did you think, mate?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought, like, as with a lot of Paul Verhoeven stuff that I've seen, it's a lot deeper than it looks on the outset.
How much Paul Verhoeven have you actually
I've seen?
Total
Total Recall, and I've seen Starship Troopers, both of which are quite cutting
Paul Verhoeven
films. They look simple on the outside, but then they have these deep satire meanings. But
oh yeah, I feel you. Okay, well then, so what's so deep about this film then, huh?
I guess it's the whole series as a whole is set in like this dystopian Detroit, where like I think it has a lot to say on corporations, and there's a lot to say on the police system, all these things that and it gets more intense throughout the series that I feel are especially relevant for these days. Conversations these days.
2019.
I haven't watched a deep dive analysis of the first RoboCop, so I can't give you a perfect answer, but I'm sure there is something brewing beneath the surface there.
Well, I haven't watched one either, so this is going to be a very surface-level podcast where we look at the robot's cool helmet. And what did you think of his cool helmet?
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very cool.
No.
I wouldn't even call it a helmet.
It's more of a mask. It's his entire head.
Yeah.
It's the man's head. It's the RoboCop's head.
Yeah. Alrighty, so I guess that's RoboCop then.
Are we going through them one by one, or are we talking about them?
Yep, so that's all we're going to say about RoboCop. This is going to be the shortest episode of Film Franchise Fortnights we've ever done, in an effort to get it out to you, the fans, as soon as we can.
All right.
Because, you know what? This is one of those weird franchises for me where it's like, for me anyway, it was good but not great, and that means I have the least to say about it, you know?
What did you think of the actors?
They were cool. Yeah, there's a few like
there's a lot of TV actors.
Red from that 70s show. He shows up. The Peter Weller, who's one of those names that I'm like, I've just known all my life. I was born knowing who Peter Weller is. Yeah. And then I'm like, I don't know if I've seen like any of his work. I guess I just knew that he was RoboCop.
Yeah, I've never heard of him, and I couldn't recognize him. This movie is the second time we've watched a movie for this podcast where the main character's name is AJ, like mine.
Okay.
The first was Ace Ventura Jr. He gets called AJ at one point. And
once in the entire film.
RoboCop's real name is Alex J. Murphy. So Alex J. obviously being me. And one of the villains in the first RoboCop is named Dick Jones, and my brother's name is Nick Jones. So this felt very familial, this film.
Yeah, this really took you back to your childhood, this film. So, yeah. Let's take a little detour where we are. Because if you guys listened to our last episode of Film Franchise Fortnights, you will remember that I got run over by a car while we were covering the Fast and the Furious franchise. And now AJ never wanted to be outdone. No. What have you been up to in the last 2 weeks? Or what did you almost get up to, I should say?
I went to a climate change protest, and in the grand scheme of things, I almost got arrested in the same way that if you walk past the Grand Canyon, you almost fall in. You know, so
you were near a police officer.
It was a bit more extreme than that. I went to a climate change protest, which is a cause that I cared about a lot, but because this podcast doesn't talk about that kind of thing much, I really
just to clarify, pro or anti-climate change?
Anti-climate change.
Okay.
Well, neutral on the process itself, but the fact that the world is allowing
it's not
us
the
to
climate's
get to that.
fault that it's changing.
What happened is that there's a green zone and a red zone for the protest, and what the protest was doing was very good. A bunch of people went and sat on the railway tracks, and that stopped a coal train from getting to its destination, because apparently I hate coal now, Richard. Big coal is ruining the world.
I like how you're like, apparently I hate this because you're just a sheep.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't realize I had anything against coal.
But now that I think about it, fuck it. Fuck
and
coal,
so I was
man.
there. I was there with some slightly more proactive friends than myself, and one of them was like, "All right, I'm going to go sit on the tracks," and they were like, "Okay, but that's the red zone, right? So the green zone is the cops can't do anything. The red zone is they can arrest you if you go over there." And he just wanders over. Cop doesn't even look at him as he passes, and then me and the remainder of the crew were like, "Oh, should we do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Who cares?" And we wandered over, and maybe like a minute after my friend did, and the cop stopped us and was like, "If you walk on these tracks, we'll put you in the back of the van now." So we're like, "Well, probably not going to do that then." So I got as close as getting arrested as one can.
You've ever been?
Yeah, I've been closer actually.
Oh, we'll tell that story then.
We can't get this sidetrack this early on in the RoboCop podcast.
How are we supposed to fill this episode?
No, I nearly got arrested when I was a teenager because I was around people who were throwing Molotov cocktails everywhere.
What the fuck?
Yeah. They weren't throwing them at people. It was like 3 a.m. and they were throwing them at stone walls and stuff.
It's not good. It doesn't make it better. That's not. That doesn't.
It makes it better. It makes it safer.
Yeah, right. It does. You're right. I'm sorry.
But I wasn't doing anything, and I didn't get arrested.
Yeah, but imagine if you got shot by a cop and a robot cop. Even that'd be crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So RoboCop 2 was directed by Irvin Kershner.
Empire Strikes Back.
And that came out I've just copy and pasted 1987 for all of these. Let's find out when this came out.
1990!
1990.
Mm-hmm.
1990. So what's this one about, dude?
This one is set maybe a year later, and there's a new drug in town. And the drug is called... What's the drug called?
Nuke.
Tom Noonan plays this, like, heavy-level drug dealer who's trying to get all the drugs out. And meanwhile, RoboCop 2 has been announced, like, the second model. And, I don't know, it's all about them continuing on the RoboCop.
Yeah, and they, like,
project.
nerf RoboCop, eh?
Yeah, they make him...
They make him, like, weaker. Or like, they make his prime directives different. I think I found let me see if I can pull up the list I found of the kind of things that RoboCop is now looking for, because he like shoots a guy for smoking, or like he shoots around his head to freak him out. So it's things like don't rush traffic lights. If you haven't got anything nice to say, don't talk. Don't say that you are always prompt when you are not. Encourage awareness. Discourage harsh language. Talk things out. Smile. And these are all his different directives. They scroll past on a screen. Don't run through puddles and splash pedestrians or other cars. So yeah, and making him a bit of a weenie, which is funny because of the first one, you know, it's famous for being like that ultra violent kind of thing, and then this film, I wouldn't say it's necessarily kid friendly, but it's a lot more kid friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, what did this one get on Rotten Tomatoes?
Very good question, AJ. What would you think?
11.
31.
There you go. I didn't, despite guessing 11, I actually didn't think it was that bad. I think one of the things that I found with the original trilogy was how captivating of a character I found RoboCop to be.
Yeah.
Because in the way it kind of explains it to you is that Alex Murphy is dead, and RoboCop is like using what was left of Alex Murphy's consciousness as like a main computer to build RoboCop off. So he talks in monotone and is very robotic, and you know he can't function as a human. Cop. But at the start of this film, he's like stalking his wife from when he was alive. He's like watching her, in his car, watching her in her house from his car, and it's like an echo in him. It's like an echo of the happiness he once had in another life, and then the wife tells the police about this, and they have like a talk with him where they're like, Alex Murphy is dead, da da da, and then his wife turns up and is like, tell me that you can see me, basically, and he's like, Alex Murphy is dead, I am RoboCop, essentially. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. It's actually quite good sequel stuff. As you know, we've talked a bit recently about what makes a good sequel, and it almost reminded me a bit of Spider-Man 2, that it's like, now he is RoboCop, but is he RoboCop? And it's like...
Yeah, I am RoboCop, am I RoboCop?
Yeah, and it was like, oh, cool, they are plugging away at that semblance of humanity that's left in him. And then that is never addressed in the rest of the film. And I was like, oh, God, that was so interesting. And it never goes back to it. Doesn't even go back to it in the third film. But yeah.
Yeah.
I liked Tom Noonan. I quite like Tom Noonan as an actor. He plays the villain in this. And I liked him. And then that he becomes RoboCop 2, where they put his brain stem in a giant robot. But then, like, the only time his face appears is like this very poorly rendered 3D approximation of his face on the computer screen. And I was like, it's so weird that, like, I don't know RoboCop the fandom, but I presume that Red from that 70s show and the first RoboCop is, I feel like he'd be held in quite high regard as such a creepy and cool villain. And I feel like Tom Noonan's character could stand up to scrutiny compared to him. But then for the whole third act of the film, for some reason, they've removed that element and he's just a generic-looking robot with his consciousness, which doesn't shine through at all.
Yeah.
So that was weird. I can understand why this is an inferior sequel, but I didn't hate it. I actually quite enjoyed parts of it.
Okay, so next we've got RoboCop 3. What's that about?
This one is about there's a branch of government that are moving members of Detroit out of their district. They're like rendering them homeless because they want to destroy that part of town and build it into like a new highbrow town. And RoboCop, while on a mission to eradicate squatters from these now government-owned buildings, his partner, who's been in it from the first film, gets shot and killed. And RoboCop goes rogue, and he's like, "No, I can't stand for this," because his first directive is to protect the innocent, and so he goes rogue from the law. And the movie's sort of about this uprising in Detroit to stop the government from, throwing people out of their homes.
Yeah, and it's got the late Rip Torn in it.
It does, yep.
Yeah, who was sadly torn from us. R.I.P.
And it also has Robo Ninjas in it, which I thought was fun.
And flying RoboCop?
Yep, very cool.
Yeah, it's a very... Yeah. So this one, you know what this says on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's like 3%, right?
3%.
All right, this is my favourite RoboCop film. This is the best 3% film I've ever seen.
Really?
That the world needs to give RoboCop 3 a second look. Because excuse me, sorry, I'm just getting up on my soapbox, Richard. I'm somehow still no longer taller. It's a very small soapbox. Like, with everything that's happening with...
It's actually just a bar of soap.
in America, with like people getting put in cages and stuff, and families being torn apart, it's all eerily reminiscent of a movie that came out nearly 30 years ago. Do you reckon
that was intentional?
Well, they predicted the future.
No, do you reckon, the current...
Donald Trump is inspired by
RoboCop
3. But he watched it and sided with the bad guys in it.
Yeah.
But RoboCop 3 is the Captain America, the Winter Soldier of the RoboCop films.
Oh, that sucks.
What are you even doing?
I'm playing devil's advocate to add conversation. Because
in the same way that Captain America, kind of put, quotation marks around America. Does Steve Rogers actually stand up for what America represents now? This is RoboCop, but is he a cop? Quotation marks around
Robo
the cop.
cop question mark?
Yeah, good alternative title. Because he goes rogue, and I thought this is what the first RoboCop should have been about. There's so many eerie lines in this that is like, oh boy, this should be watched in 2019. Like, there's one part where the bad guys go and try and convince RoboCop's old police chief to join them in ripping people out of their homes, and he says something like, "It is not a policeman's job to take people away from their homes." And I was like, oh, kind of is now though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought this was excellent. I genuinely really liked RoboCop 3, and I'm shocked.
Would you say this is one of the top films we've ever watched for the podcast?
Yeah, I would, sure.
Wow, nice, dude.
Just for the dramatic sake, I will say that.
Wow, holy shit, dude.
Holy shit.
That's holy shit. That is some holy shit.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was pretty silly. There's a lot of...
What's even... I don't understand how a movie that's as competent as that is can get such a low rating.
No, I agree with everything you said. No, the whole flying, and there's a lot of silly
awesome
effects and stuff like that. One thing I didn't mention about the first RoboCop is they integrate stop motion effects. They've got the ED-209s, which are the how would you describe them? They're like
mech.
Yeah, they're like mech droid drone things. And so that's the famous scene of them being like, "Oh, test it out, point a gun at it, and then I'll turn it off." And then this guy gets brutally shot to death in front of the boardroom. But the mech that shoots him is stop motion animated, and it's there's just a real cool look to stop motion.
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks. It's my favorite part of the films. And then from memory, did they not do it in the second one, but then they do in the third?
No, it's in the second one heaps.
Okay, yeah. Might have them mixed up, but yeah, no, it's a really cool effect. It's one of those things it's like you can see the strings, so to speak. And and like how it's being done, and it does look a little bit out of place, but at the same time that makes it look way better.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So I mean, like, RoboCop's one of those franchises where, like I said, I don't have like too much to say about it, but it's because I didn't think any of them were like a massive downgrade. Well, I mean, the original trilogy anyway. Like, I didn't think they were massively differing in quality or anything like that. Like they've all got like silly shit in them, and they've all got like some good moments.
That's the thing, though, is that the silly shit in them is so emblematic of that time in history, and you wouldn't. And we'll get to this with the 2014 remake. Is that there's like the way he moves is silly. Like it's like someone doing the robot dance.
Someone doing the robot.
Yeah, and it's like just the his cheesy 80s style catchphrases, and it's all very like, haha, remember the days where one-liners were big, and it's like this is this movie, and this like it's called RoboCop, which is such an silly
and they all end with like a line, like the one line where it's like, call me Murphy at the end of the first one, and then the third one it's like Brooke Torn's like, well, I gotta hand it to you, what do they call you, Murphy? And he's like, my friends call me Murphy, you call me RoboCop.
Yeah. It's so great. I really liked, if we're on like stuff like the stop motion effects, I really liked there's a very almost H.G. Geiger-esque look to what RoboCop looks like when his helmet's off, and because his head is like, it's like his face, and then there's clearly like an enclave where it goes into the robotic part of his head. So this is to say it looks like his head is on top of the robotic stuff, and not like he's just wearing like a Buzz Lightyear style rubber hood. You know what I mean? It looks like the back of his head's missing. And I think, and like, there's a lot more of that in the second one, which felt more Verhoeven-y than the first one, despite the fact that Verhoeven was not on board.
H.R. Geiger, do you mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so
I was got confused with H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
Which could probably still apply, to be honest.
Yeah.
H.G. Wells and H.R. Geiger are similar aesthetics.
Yeah. Well, so while we're talking about just the Tridge before we move on to the reboot cop, one thing that was kind of, we spoke about this, but the original film was given an X rating originally by the Motion Picture Association of America, because of the graphic violence. But then, I think they cut some scenes for the release, and it was given an R rating. But the original X-rated cut is available. It's like the Criterion Collection Laserdisc is there, and also the current the Blu-ray 4K Master Edition has the unrated cut.
Interesting. I wonder what version I watched, because it was definitely more violent than your average movie, but nothing really really shocked me. So
yeah, there's that like Verhoeven and who's the other one? Cronenberg. They have a very interesting style of gore and effects that. And I think some people from The Thing worked on like the special effects guys from The
Thing. You feel that,
It's that same, the explosion, the skin. And
it's like one of the things that happens to RoboCop when he gets murdered is he gets his hand shot off, which is such a visceral thing to think about,
Yeah.
Having your hand shot off. Fuck, that would ruin your day.
Yeah, and RoboCop shoots a guy in the dick.
Yep. As we all
That would suck. That would ruin your day.
Yeah, but he was a bad guy. He doesn't deserve his dick.
He doesn't deserve a good day. Yeah. All right. So, let's move on to the RoboCop 2014, which is called RoboCop, and it came out in 2014. And what's that about? Is there anything different?
Yeah, it's quite a different film, but it has the same overall plot. Like he gets nearly murdered and turned into a robot.
He gets turned into a cop. It's a robot that gets shot and then turns into a cop. It sort of goes in different directions from the movies. The main point of difference I would point out would be that the new guy playing RoboCop, there's a lot more humanity to him than
kind of
Yeah, well, that's what you get when you hire Joel Kinnaman, dude.
is the most human actor around.
Yeah.
He doesn't really change in personality when he becomes RoboCop, whereas I feel the whole point of Murphy in the original trilogy is that he...
Yeah, like you spoke about, that it's Murphy is dead.
Yeah, and there's a internal conflict there that's very fascinating and very, I would like to say, very well acted by Paul Weller.
Yeah.
Is that it? What's his name?
Peter Weller.
Peter Weller. Paul Walker.
You're thinking of Paul Walker.
Paul Welker. Frank Welker. The voice of Brain from Pinky and the Brain. And also plays Orson Welles in various things, who was in the movie adaptation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Or no, it was the radio voice of it.
Are you sure?
Yep.
It's Frank Walker?
No, It's Orson Welles, I said.
Yeah, no, but you said Frank Welker was the voice of Orson Welles.
He plays him in like Pinky and the Brain and shit.
Nah, isn't it, you're gonna maybe look at what's his name?
Maurice LaMarche?
Yeah, Maurice LaMarche.
Is it him? Who's Frank Welker's Yoda?
No, that's Frank Oz.
No, Frank Welker
he does all the
he's Optimus Prime.
animal voices. No, that's no, like he's Fred and Scooby, and he's Nibbler on Futurama.
Yeah, Nibbler on Futurama that's the same voice as Pinky and the Brain, isn't it? Let's look. Voice acting career.
No, so Frank Welker like voices like every time you hear like an animal, it's Frank Welker.
Right. Okay. I believe you.
Yeah. He did do a lot of voices in Transformers.
That's probably
but not yeah, he's Megatron. Yeah.
Is he Mega? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So I got it slightly wrong, but
What a fun little excursion that was from the tale of RoboCop. So Joel Kinnaman obviously stars as RoboCop, and he's probably the biggest star in this film, you'd say.
No, this film is chock full of like very expensive actors. Samuel Jackson is in a role that didn't need to be Samuel Jackson in this film,
or in the film at all.
Yeah, Gary Oldman is in this film, play again a role I wouldn't complain if it was played by someone less famous. Who else is in it?
Jabarushal.
Jay Baruchel.
Jay Baruchel.
There was another big name in it. Michael Keaton.
Abby Cornish.
Michael Keaton's the bad guy. Abby Cornish, the best actress of our generation. Who else is in it? Jackie Earle Haley is in this film.
Yeah.
I'm grasping at straws for famous people now, but Michael Keaton, Gary Oldman, and Samuel Jackson are all very big gets for a very forgettable movie that a lot of people probably do not remember exists.
Yeah. What would you say? Okay, so I didn't mention as well that this is directed by Jose Pahila.
Cool.
Pahila. And what do you reckon it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
60%.
49%.
There you go.
Yeah, no, this was, this was kind of like a lot of people, RoboCop purists, hated it.
I hated it. I didn't like this movie at all. And I'm not even that much of a RoboCop purist because I like the third one the most. But I just thought that this was such this is a quintessential remake. Like, this is the type of film you think of when you think of what a remake is. It's like slightly more updated, but it kind of ruins everything. It's sleeker and sexier, and it's just... It's no good. It's boring. The characters are nowhere near as interesting or captivating, and it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, and it's stuff like the stop motion I mentioned, that like when you polish it too much, it loses.
Yeah, it loses its
you
grit.
polish it and it loses its shine.
They feel like the original ones feel like they are Detroit. This one feels like it's like Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, it's great. And another thing, this film has like a big final act with drones. Which is another like thing that I've started noticing, that like every 2010s blockbuster seems to have drones in it.
Yeah.
Hobbs and Shaw, Angel Has Fallen,
RoboCop. All three of them.
Yeah. The three big ones from this decade.
The three most defining films of the 2010s.
And so, yeah, this one does not have an R rating. It was PG-13, which was one of the things that pissed off a lot of fans, because I believe that, like, Jose, the director, and Joel Kinnaman both, like, really fought hard. And I seem to remember at one point that they said, like, yeah, this one's going to be R-rated. We're, like, doing the original. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. And then the budget kept on rising. The studio was like, nah, it has to be PG-13 so people will see this. And the director had a horrible, horrible time. He would phone Fernando Morales, the director, during the film and just confide in him about how much he fucking hated making the film.
Who's Fernando Morales?
He directed The Constant Gardener and City of God.
Oh, yeah.
And Blindness.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good director. I studied Constant Gardener in year 13 English class. But yeah, he said that the making the film was the worst experience of his life.
Yeah, it's definitely... it shows.
Yeah, and then word of this conversation got out, and the studio made him release counter statements saying that he was very satisfied with the film.
Very believable. This film has a very disturbing implication in it where... so Alex Murphy is blown up by a car bomb, and that's how they get him and turn him into a robot. And when he's blown up, they sort of go through his autopsy, and they're like, he's blind, he's deaf, he's lost all his limbs. And then when he's put in the robot suit and like Gary Oldman like takes all the bells and whistles off it to show him who he is a head, a pair of lungs, and a single hand. We posted a photo of it on our Instagram. And not only does it look
hilarious,
silly and hilarious, and not only is it like existentially terrifying how lack of a human he is, but also it actually means they butchered him to put him into the robot suit, which feels anti what it should have been. Like, surely they want to like, as soon as you start actively cutting off the parts of human he still has,
filleting.
Yeah. I feel like that would be a very disturbing job for whoever did that. And also, why does he need lungs? If he doesn't have a heart, surely the heart's more integral than the lungs.
Yeah. Did they mention his lungs in one of the other ones, I believe?
Right.
Because I remember when I saw the lungs, I was like, oh yeah, because of the lungs.
Anyway, I thought this movie was bland and forgettable, and...
Yeah, it takes itself very seriously. And in fact, they don't even say RoboCop in it.
Because it's too silly. You wouldn't be able to say...
Yeah.
The best part of this movie is when the title screen comes up, and it goes dun 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 dun. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking awesome 80s themes, or 80s and 90s theme music for it. Comes back very briefly. And actually, no, the best part was the company I watched it with, actually.
Oh, I was just doing to say that.
Me and Richard watched this movie together, which we never ever do anymore because...
It was fun.
I was in Auckland, and we didn't record in Auckland, and then had to wait a day to record this because we were very busy, and it's just sort of... Here it is. I hope you guys are enjoying this episode.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and we'll see you next time. We had a good time watching this together, didn't we? We got fish and chips.
Yep, at 1 in
and
the morning.
I made a funny joke.
Oh my god, tell your joke. Or should I tell? Is it better if I tell?
You tell it, so that I'm not, like, talking it up.
So, Michael K. Williams is RoboCop's partner in this, and at one point when the bad guy is at the end of the film, he's like, you know, he's got the upper hand on RoboCop, and you think he's going to shoot him, and then Michael K. Williams shoots him from behind and saves the day. And when that happened, Richard went, "Leave my friend RoboCop alone!" And I just lost it. It was like exactly the spark of comedy I needed at that point in the movie. Like, I think it's enhanced by the fact that they're too scared to use the term RoboCop in the film.
And that he's clarifying who his friend is, even though he's the only other person there.
Yeah. And talking to a guy just killed. It's great stuff.
So that's the kind of comedy that, like, we miss out on by not watching these movies together anymore.
I remember when we watched the Godzilla films, and we watched Son of Godzilla, which ended with, like, baby Godzilla just crying on an island and Godzilla comforting him, and we were just both, I don't know who started it, but we both just started going, "Pourquoi, papi, pourquoi?" And I remember we did it, and we thought it was so funny because they're such goofy looking. Go look up Son of Godzilla if you want to see the funniest attempt at what a baby Godzilla, character design. And I remember we did that, and then I looked at you and I said, "There's no way we can bring this up on the podcast. There's like no context. So that's been a little behind the scenes joke.
A little peek behind the curtain.
Pourquoi, papi?
Pourquoi, papi? Yeah, that was very good. I don't know why he's Spanish.
It's funnier.
It is funnier. Look, Spanish people are funnier.
I didn't say that. Spanish people are notoriously proud.
One like cheesy thing from the originals that this one does reference though is there's a random like it's like a sitcom that you see the catchphrase of the main character.
Yes, we need to talk about this as an overall.
Yeah. So there's this sitcom where you
an in-universe sitcom.
Yeah, that you see snippets of where the main character goes, "I'd buy that for $1."
Yeah, and he's like this very intense-looking mustache.
Yeah, and the camera zooms in right into his face. And he's got a mustache and brown glasses, and then Jackie O'Haley says in the reboot, he goes, "I wouldn't buy that for $1."
Yeah.
And you took umbrance with his delivery of the line.
I took umbrance to that because he says it like how you said it. So he's showing off his android's capabilities compared to RoboCop's capabilities. And when RoboCop inevitably, the human part of him makes him not as good at the job, Jackie O'Haley goes, "I wouldn't buy that for $1." But it's like, it's said that way to be a reference to that original line from the movie, from the first film. But he should be saying it, "I wouldn't buy that for $1." Like, he should be emphasizing dollar.
Yeah, see, I disagree. I think it's like the sitcom still exists in the reboot universe, or even the movie RoboCop exists in this universe, and he's referencing that, and he's going, "I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy that for $1." Like, he's quoting something. Like, to me, it very much sounded like he was quoting something.
Right. That's a big jump. I feel like I like that more, but I don't know if the movie's internal logic goes back that far.
Just do it, dude. Make that jump. Take that leap with me, dude. Yeah, so RoboCop 2014.
Throw it out of my mind.
Yep, already gone from mine, dude. Like, I have a like, as soon as Monday midnight comes on Monday, I forget the films of the last 2 weeks, and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Struggling.
So the "I'll buy that for $1" thing, it's, again, in the first RoboCop film, it's like just something you see on TV. And what I liked about that original trilogy, which I also want to say, despite having 3 different directors, I feel is one of the most tonally consistent trilogies I've seen. Like but
the first one's like ultra violent.
Yeah, I guess that's the big difference. But like, they all feel like they exist and occupy the same fictional world. Like, it's not like something like The Dark Knight where it clearly changes cities for the second one. And part of the consistency across the 3 films is they have like ad breaks for in-universe products that come up, and it's really, really well done. And they're all like kind of building the world of this not quite post-apocalypse, but nearing apocalypse dystopian Detroit. And so like there's an ad in the second one for sunscreen 5000 or something, which is super strong sunscreen because if you spend 11 seconds in the Californian sun in the future, it'll give you skin cancer. And so they put on the sunscreen that's like just blue paint essentially. And it's really good. So there's stuff like that, and then there's like
the satire stuff like that is really fun.
Yeah, it's really well done, and I think that's something that I'm glad carried over into the sequels. And it's like, with the new RoboCop, the remake, it is made to be like it's not made for the fans of RoboCop. It's made for the new generation to try and work with that. Because if it was made for the fans, which it should have been, it would have been cheesy, and it would have had like all those comical, satirical ad breaks. And the closest thing it gets to is Samuel L. Jackson's news show, which is
weird, and it's like
it's not integrated into the story well enough.
Yeah, you're kind of not really sure if it's like a Rod Serling Twilight Zone kind of intro, or if it's like it's very strangely done.
Yeah.
It's like them trying to predict what TV is going to look like in the future. Yeah. But, so all right, we talk about titles a lot on this podcast. And so because of that, we created a segment, and that segment is called "We Talk About Tires a Lot" on this podcast. So the name, what do you think of the name RoboCop?
Yeah, it's silly, but it's fine. It's moved from the
is
80s,
silly,
so you
isn't
can call it that, I guess.
Yeah. Apparently, many studios turned down the original script and thought the name was unsuitable.
Interesting.
I don't know if they meant for the film or, for audiences. Imagine reading RoboCop and be like, I don't think it should be. I don't think the name RoboCop suits it. Like he's called RoboCop in the film, and they use RoboCop like 100 times, but they're like, I just don't see it being called
Robo Policeman.
but I thought
Robot Cop.
a little fun robot policeman. A little fun exercise we could do to pad out the runtime of this podcast is just because this is one of those often parodied titles. And so, just by changing one letter or using a word that sounds the same, you can have an all-new film. So I'll give you some titles, and I want you to, give me a film.
Pitch the film to you.
Yeah. So the first is RoboCop.
It's about a cop who gets... it's about an oboe teacher who becomes a cop. No, the oboe becomes a cop.
And this one, actually, you might recognize this title, RoboCopter.
RoboCopter is about a It's a new RoboCop film. This is doubling as my continue the franchise. It's a new RoboCop film where RoboCop is like shot up so much that the human part of him is completely eradicated, and so instead of building him back up, they replace it with parts of a helicopter, and he becomes Robo Helicopter, which is just a helicopter.
Robo Helicopter, not RoboCopter. And that's based on a dream you had, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a dream that someone was like, there's a RoboCopter movie. And I was like, is that a sequel to RoboCop? And they're like, no, it's unrelated to the film. And I was like, it's unrelated to the film. And it's called RoboCopter. I just love it because a RoboCopter is just a helicopter. Like, it's what's the difference?
Half robot, half helicopter.
It's just a helicopter. It's all helicopter.
HoboCop.
It's about a cop who... after arresting homeless people for years, decides it's time he walks a mile in the other guy's shoes, or lack thereof.
Oh, so it's a cop who becomes a hobo.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Robot Cop, which is from Community. That's what Britta calls it.
Robot Cop. It's about a cop who is transferred
into a robot.
He is transferred to a rowboat community.
Nice.
It's like Hot Fuzz, but instead of a peaceful village, it's a village full of rowboat enthusiasts.
What about LoboCop to replace the recently cancelled Lobo series based on the DC Comics character Lobo?
Yeah, it's just Lobo from DC, but he becomes a cop.
Nice. RoboCup?
It's Cup, not Cop. Okay. If there's Cop Cup. Cop Cup is about a cop who's sick of other people using his cup in the staff room, even though it's clearly marked. RoboCup is about a cup that joins the police force. That still involves the police.
Nice. All right, and finally, RoboCap.
It's a new Captain America movie, and he gets made into a robot.
Nice. I was thinking of like a hat, but that's good.
Too bad.
Like a baseball cap.
Robo Captain America.
The first Avenger.
Yeah.
Gonna level with you guys. I had to pop out momentarily, which AJ will have cut out of the podcast. And while I was out there, I grabbed a piece of licorice, and I'm now eating it. And it's like chewier and lasts longer than I thought it would. But so now I've just got it in my mouth. And I'm not chewing it because it's going to be real loud.
Wow.
So, AJ, what's our next segment?
Continue the franchise?
Yeah, what's that?
It's where we try to squeeze some more money out of the very lucrative RoboCop series by pitching our own sequels, which I've just done, so I've already done mine. But before Richard pitches his, he's going to let us know if this franchise has been continued on in any various ways beyond the films, because we only watch the films because it's film franchise follow-ups. And if you want to hear us talk about the extended catalogue of all the franchises, you can join our Patreon, where we do a little show for $5 a month called Film Franchise Follow-Ups, where we watch like the Godzilla anime movies and I don't know, the Toy Story short films and stuff like that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I finished my piece of licorice. And you, just for those out there, you said film franchise follow-ups twice. You said that this was film franchise follow-ups.
It's not.
But this is, of course, film franchise follow-ups.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a few TV series based on RoboCop. So there's RoboCop the series, which is a live-action TV show that ran for one season in 1994. It was aimed at kids and teenagers. And then you have RoboCop Prime Directives, a 2001 miniseries, which apparently actually like does the tone quite well, but it's very clearly like quite low budget.
Right.
And then we have two animated series called RoboCop. We have two animated series. One is called RoboCop the Animated Series. It ran for 12 episodes in 1988, and that's like a Saturday morning cartoon thing. And then we also had RoboCop Alpha Commando, which ran for 40 episodes in the 98 to 99 TV season. That's 1998 for all you 1800s or 2000s.
Look, they're out there, and we need to be considering them.
Yeah, well, you know what? Like we've got a lot of feedback that we're not being considerate enough to the 1899 kids.
Yeah,
and only they'll get this. Okay, so also there was a sequel announced to the 2014 reboot, but that looks very unlikely now. There's also I discovered there's like novels and a comic book. Frank Miller's done a RoboCop comic
because he wrote the two sequels.
Yeah, and so like it was something to do with it. He adapted it into a comic as well. There's also I found this. There's a full film. I think you can find it on YouTube called Our RoboCop Remake, and that came out in 2014. And it was like a bunch of fans who were unhappy with the way the reboot was going, and so they did like a shot-for-shot remake themselves. And I pulled it up and clicked ahead to a random point in it, and it was when RoboCop shoots the guy's dick off, except you see like a full dick, and it gets shot very graphically.
Very cool.
And so that was like just the random part I clicked to. Now, also big news this week for RoboCop fans that actually there's a sequel which is following the new trend of being a sequel which ignores everything apart from the first film. That's called RoboCop Returns. Now, Neil Blomkamp was going to direct this, and as recently as like a month ago, he was tweeting about how the it's going steady and it's going to be great. It's going to have an R rating. The suit is going to be 1,000,000% the original suit. But then just a couple of days ago, it was announced that he was leaving the project because the studio said, we need to shoot this right now. He said, I can't right now. And they said, well, you have to leave the project. And so he left the project. As of yet, there's no other director currently announced. But have you got anyone you would like to see direct a RoboCop film?
Me, dude. I'll do it.
Yeah. This is us officially throwing our name to the ring.
Yeah. I really like Neil Blomkamp becoming the director who's known for avoiding making the movies that everyone wants him to make. Like, there's no District 10, there's no Alien 5, and now there's no RoboCop Returns. And he just keeps on making shit like Chappie and Elysium that no one likes.
Yeah. Do you know who I reckon should do it?
Who?
Dan Trachtenberg.
He directed... What did he direct?
10 Cloverfield Lane.
Ah, yes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And he also did the episode of Black Mirror playtest.
Yeah, and I'd like to see a modern RoboCop now that... Like, the problem with the 2014 one is it came out right at the tail end of that kind of reboot, which was like the iPod generation of like sleeker and sexier. So the suit is black in the reboot, in the remake.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a moment in the reboot when they decide to make the suit black. When I think it's Gary Oldman is like, and make the suit.
No, it's Michael Keaton.
Black. Michael Keaton's like, make the suit black, and it's like, it's.
Who are you pandering to?
Yeah, if you watched just the reboot, you would be like, oh, the original suit must be black.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
them like, fine, because the suit's not black up until that point, and then it's like, oh, cool, but it's not. Like, who was that pause for?
Yeah. Whereas now we're more concerned with authenticity with remakes and stuff like that and homages.
Yeah.
So I would love to see how that suit, that rusty old tin man would look in Modern day.
So is RoboCop and those ones, are they your continue the franchise? Or do you
They
have
are.
another one?
I don't have any other ideas.
Okay, well, I've got two ideas. One's kind of a vague where I think a sequel should go, and then another one's an original idea. So one, I think, and this was kind of evident when you were talking about this watching the 2014 one, is that like it's weird to have such a pro cop movie in 2019, you know?
Yeah.
The image of not only policemen but also like robots is quite different now. So I think if they were making another RoboCop movie, you have to at least address the idea that there's a possibility that this is a very bad idea.
Well, that's why I liked RoboCop 3, because he was going
Yeah.
against the police force.
But also, apparently as well, the guys that wrote the original wrote like a sequel script that wasn't used, which had like a reality star running for president and getting elected president.
Oh my goodness.
And people, and apparently it's a lot of it's very like, holy shit, how'd you predict this? So I think that's why RoboCop Returns is happening now as well.
Right.
That it's like, holy shit, this script has been sitting here for ages, so it's been updated or whatever. But yeah, I think that there's a lot more that can be said about the police force and the, like, you know, being taken over by robots, that like even as compared to 5 years ago, there's our image of those things that are kind of different, which is interesting. But my idea is a film called RoboCops. So it's the original RoboCop, who's very robot, and you kind of have to take some liberty with this. So he's very robotic, and he's like, "Beep, I'm a robot." But he's also a little bit quippy. And then he is forced to work with the 2014 reboot RoboCop, who is your modern day action hero hothead, who's you know, he's slicker, he's moves faster, but he doesn't follow the rules. Now, you have to kind of, the start of the film would follow the 2014 RoboCop, and we kind of push the character more towards like the hothead.
Yeah.
And then you have our original RoboCop, who's too old for this shit. You know, he cracks jokes every now and then, but he's a lot more wooden. He just can't do it like he used to. And, you know, you pair them together. Now, I'm not sure if it would work having two personality types that are so different put together in one film.
Yeah.
But I think it just might work.
It's a revolutionary formula, and it's never been tried before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially not with police.
No.
Yeah.
Police that are like buddies of some descript.
Yeah. Buddy RoboCop.
Yeah, right.
So that's my continue the franchise, RoboCops.
Nice.
And that brings us almost to the end of our episode, but there's just one more thing we have to do, and that is to reveal the franchise that we will be covering next week.
This one was selected by our patrons, and for $1 a month, you too can suggest and vote on every second franchise that we cover. So get on patreon.com/cultpopture and get in that now.
And the franchise that we will be covering is the four films franchise known as Spy Kids.
We're doing Spy Kids, everybody, and we're going to be following... Can we reveal this? We're going to be following that episode
I don't know, can we?
with the Machete films, because Machete is a little-known spin-off to Spy Kids. Is that little-known? I feel like that's not... widely known.
Well, whatever. But so you got two episodes.
Two film franchises, Fortnights coming up.
Yeah, directed by Robert Rodriguez, starring Danny Trejo.
Yeah, cool. So look forward to that next week, guys. And if you enjoyed this, please check out Cult Popture in 2 weeks. Yep. Thank you, Richard. Please check out Cult Popture on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Acast and wherever you get your podcasts and Twitter, and you can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com.
That's a lot of... And if you do all of those things, we'll give you a little kiss.
I will. You know, dead or alive, I'm gonna kiss you. Well, that wasn't a good way to incorporate his...
Jesus.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Laters.
Bye.
Fam.